State Assembly in California unveiled a statue of Ronald Reagan, which I thought was really hypocritical of them. They could not hold a candle to Ronald Reagan. I really don't think they respect the man or admire him. If so, they'd actually emulate the guy. And obviously they don't. So I did this video on Ronald Reagan because it was Independence Day, and I believe Reagan really valued the idea that Americans should be free. It's why he reduced our taxes, and we are more free when we have more of our money. Margaret Thatcher was a British Prime Minister, and she was much in the same mold as Ronald Reagan. So I thought about this as I was doing the video on Ronald Reagan, and thought that I can't really do a video on Ronald Reagan without doing one on Margaret Thatcher also. Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were much in the same mold. They thought people deserved freedom. They thought that people deserved to keep more of their money. And Margaret Thatcher, in ways, is actually more controversial than Ronald Reagan, because she undid a lot of stuff in the UK. The UK had gone down that road of socialism even more than America had by the late 1970s. In fact, the United Kingdom really ground to a near halt in the winter of 1979. It's called the Winter of Discontent. It was a miserable time in the United Kingdom. It was obvious during the time that Margaret Thatcher was in office, and after she left office, and even at her death, that she angered a lot of people. But she did the right thing for the United Kingdom. She saved the United Kingdom. The coal unions in the United Kingdom, many blame her for coal mines being shut down, but they don't talk about the reduced demand for coal. They don't talk about that. They just sweep that under the rug. But when there's reduced demand for a product, there has to be reduced production of that product. And that is the beauty of a free market. The less efficient coal mines would go out of business, and the more efficient ones would still be providing the coal needed in the United Kingdom. But this isn't what happened. Because the coal mines were unionized, they had the clout to keep these coal mines producing more coal than was needed. Furthermore, for the tonnage of coal being mined, they were overmanned by a nearly 2-to-1 ratio, and they were overpaid on top of it. Because they were overpaid, it drove the price of coal up, which in turn drove the price of British steel up, which in turn drove the price of British automobiles up. This all results in non-competitive industries and results in unemployment. And furthermore, these coal mines were subsidized. They were subsidized by non-union people, primarily in the service sector of the economy, which was mostly made up of women and mostly made up of people who earned less than the coal miners did. And yet they are having to subsidize these coal miners to produce coal that isn't needed in the marketplace. This amounted to 1.1 billion pounds per year taxed out of that other sector. These people now have less money to spend. Whatever they were spending that money on led to jobs there. When they aren't spending it anymore, that's a job loss. So again, it leads to unemployment. Now, out of this 1.1 billion pounds, 400 million pounds were consumed by the government bureaucracy. 700 million pounds went to the coal companies, rewarding inefficiency. When you already have an inefficient industry that's overpaid and overmanned, and then on top of it, throwing taxpayer money at it. It's not a workable situation. It leads to unemployment all around. It leads to unemployment in the sectors of the economy where this money is taxed from. It leads to unemployment because it makes British coal non-competitive. It makes British steel non-competitive. It makes British automobiles non-competitive. Anything that's built with that expensive steel becomes non-competitive. This is not Margaret Thatcher's fault. This is the union's fault. Yet people will blame Margaret Thatcher to this day. Coal was also used to generate electricity, and it drove the price of electricity up. And that too takes the expensive coal, if you used it for heating, took a lot of money out of people's pockets. The expensive steel, the expensive cars, all took more money out of people's pockets. And that results in poverty just to support bloated union labor. It resulted in a shortage of electricity. And this is where it really came to head in 1979, when there was such a shortage of electricity, there was only a 3-day work week in Britain. That just kills production. When you could be working 5, 6, 7 days a week and you're only working 3. That results in more unemployment yet. It killed the economy. And Britain literally ground to a halt. If you look, and plenty of information is available on this if you look for it, all of these strikes in various industries, including the trash collection, and trash was just piling up in the streets in the UK. It was a miserable time. Ask someone who lived through it, or just research it. It was a miserable, miserable time. And it was because of socialism. The industries that were nationalized, the rail and the trucking and everything, and look that up too. That results in inefficiency. Government never runs business efficiently. Just the economy's too broad. There are too many different types of businesses, and the government gets involved in it, nationalizes it, takes it away from the people who have been working in those businesses and who have gained the knowledge necessarily to run those specific businesses. Even your so-called less complicated businesses require a certain amount of knowledge gained when you work in that business that the government just cannot hope to know. Think of how diverse the economy is, from the trash collection to the people shipping food to markets, to the people that own and run steel mills, to the electronics firm. That is a hopeless task for government to tackle, and it shows in the incredible inefficiency when Britain had owned so many industries. Margaret Thatcher privatized that. People to this day say that, well, the government should own it because the government doesn't have to earn a profit, so the price will be lower. It never works out that way. Government-provided services are always more expensive. Competition in private industry results in lower prices. The only way to gain customers and market share in private business is to offer it more efficiently than the competition. Yes, there's profit in it, but you're striving to offer goods and services more efficiently to compete. So even with the profit that a business owner receives in a free market, that profit, they still provide that service for less than the government does. Government does not run business efficiently. Government shouldn't be in the business of business. They should be in the business of governing. And it's the same with the rails and the nationalized trucking and everything else that was nationalized. Even though government just has to break even and not turn a profit, just the very clunkiness and inefficiency of government will still have higher costs and thus a higher price tag for the consumer. People forget that Thatcher really did save the nation. She was unpopular with a lot of people, but she did save the United Kingdom. It was nearly a century of socialist leftist policies that brought the UK to the situation it was in the winter of 1979. Whenever you have a socialist system in place, even in a democracy, it does undermine liberty, it does undermine freedom, and it does make people dependent on the government. When people are used to being dependent on the government and being taken care of without having to work, it will be unpopular when someone comes along and threatens that gravy train. But it was necessary for Margaret Thatcher to do. It really is necessary now in my own country that we need to start fighting against that, because we have more and more dependency here. A free nation, of free citizens, will never be strong unless those citizens are self-reliant and independent people earning their living in a free market. Dependency undermines democracy. Dependency undermines freedom. Dependency undermines the very concept and idea and value of citizenship, and it turns people into subjects. It turns people into mere subjects.